"Oh God, somebody's child is under here." The cry ripped out of Nina Harris before she even understood it. The metal watering can slipped, crashing against the garden stones, shattering the quiet Long Island morning. She dropped to her knees, fingers plunging into the freshly turned soil of the Pierce rose garden. The dirt was too soft, recently disturbed. Her hand hit something cold, smooth, human, tiny fingers. "No, no, no, Daniel," she choked, clawing frantically. When the small blue pajama top appeared, her breath shattered. She hooked her arms beneath the boy and yanked him upward. "Too hard!" Daniel's body jerked, his chest convulsed, and he screamed, "It hurts! I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry!" Nina sobbed, clutching his trembling 8-year-old body. "Please, God, keep him breathing." Dirt smeared her uniform as she stumbled backward. Daniel clawed at her collar, choking, coughing up soil with ragged, broken cries. "Help!" she screamed. "Somebody help!" A door slammed. Heavy footsteps pounded across the stone patio. Alexander Pierce, one of New York's wealthiest men, charged toward them, polished composure gone, replaced by a feral, terrifying rage Nina had never seen. "What did you do?" he roared. Nina's voice shook. "Sir, I found him under the roses." "You monster!" Alexander ripped Daniel from her arms. The boy wailed in pain. Nina reached out. "Please, he was buried." His hand cracked across her face. Pain exploded in her jaw as her head whipped sideways. "You buried my son alive," Alexander shouted. "You tried to murder him." "No, sir," Nina gasped. He shoved her chest, sending her crashing into the rose bushes, thorns shredding her arms, legs back. She groaned, pushing herself up through the sting of cuts. "Mr. Pierce, I would never—" "Shut up," he snarled, grief twisting his voice. "I trusted you with my children." "Alex," a smooth voice floated from the terrace. Veronica glided out, silk robe, perfect hair. She rushed to Alexander's side, resting a trembling hand on his shoulder. "Oh my God, Nina, how could you?" Fake tears glistened. "Daniel is just a child." "I didn't do this," Nina whispered, desperate. "I heard him crying underground. I dug him out. I saved him." Veronica gasped, hand covering her mouth. "You expect us to believe that? You were alone with him. You've been acting strange for weeks." "That's right," one of the housemaids yelled from the doorway. "I heard her talking to herself again this morning." Another voice chimed in. "She's obsessed with those kids, always hovering." Nina's stomach dropped. "That's not true. Y'all know me. I would never hurt." "Monster!" someone screamed. "Child killer!" another shouted. "Get her away from here!" Alexander turned, eyes blazing, and Nina's knees went weak. "If Daniel dies," he growled, stepping closer, "I swear on everything I own. Your life won't be worth the dirt you dug up." She staggered from the bushes, bleeding, trembling. "Sir, I'm begging you," she cried. "Just listen to me. He was already buried when I found him. I swear to God." "Don't drag God into this," Alexander snapped. "You're fired. You're never setting foot in this house again." Her breath vanished. "No, sir, please." She dropped to her knees in the dirt, hands clasped. "I didn't hurt him. I saved him. My daughter needs surgery. I'm behind on everything. I've been working doubles. Please don't do this. She only has me." Veronica stepped closer, her shadow swallowing Nina. "Alexander, don't let her manipulate you. It's obvious. Women like her know how to beg. It's what they're good at." Something inside Nina sagged, humiliation digging deeper than the cuts on her skin. "I heard him," Nina sobbed. "I swear." Veronica shook her head sadly. "She's unstable, sweetheart. I told you. She talks to herself, stares at their photos. I was afraid." Alexander exhaled hard. "Get off my property, Nina. Now." Hours later, after Daniel was stabilized, Nina sat on the cold marble steps, staring at her scraped palms. A cop repeated the same question. "Where were you before you found the boy?" "I was gardening. I heard him crying underground," she whispered. "You expect us to buy that?" the officer muttered. Inside, Veronica's sweet voice floated through the halls. "Detective Nina's always been fragile," she mutters to herself, stares at the kids' pictures. "Late. I was scared she might hurt someone." Pens scratched. Nina clenched her teeth to stop from sobbing. Later, washing blood from her arms in the staff bathroom, a small figure appeared in the doorway. Lily, eyes big and worried, clutched her teddy. "Miss Nina?" Nina forced a smile. "Hey, honey." "Dad said you hurt Daniel," Lily whispered. Nina's heart tightened. "Sweetheart, that's not true." Lily twisted the bear's ear. Veronica said, "I shouldn't talk to you." She said, "Mommy's ghost is mad 'cause you bring bad luck." Nina froze. "Mommy's ghost?" Lily nodded. She said, "Mommy's spirit sees everything." A chill crawled up Nina's neck. "Honey, ghosts don't blame people, and I don't bring bad luck." Lily hesitated. "I believe you." Nina hugged her, swallowing tears. Someone had buried Daniel. Someone wanted her blamed. That night, lying on her narrow shot, staring at cracked plaster, Nina replayed everything. The scream, the soil, Alexander's slap, Veronica's performance. The house felt older, heavier, thick with secrets. "Lord, if you put me here for a reason," she whispered, "don't let me run." Upstairs, behind a closed door, Veronica watched the rose garden from the guest room window, wine glass in hand, a faint smile curving her lips. "The game's just starting," she murmured. Morning brought no comfort. The mansion sat beneath a dull gray sky, tall windows shuttered. The garden, once immaculate, was scarred with crushed roses and muddy footprints. The smell of turned earth lingered like something unfinished. Nina stood near the rose bushes, arms crossed, sleeves pulled down over bruises. A breeze tugged her uniform. For a second, she felt like a ghost haunting a house that had erased her. Staff walked past as though she were invisible. No one greeted her. They'd heard the whispers. She did it, buried the boy, snapped. Some nodded politely at Veronica gliding through the halls, robe pristine, voice soothing. Nina knew that sweetness. Sugar poured over poison. She hadn't slept. Welts on her back throbbed with every movement, but worse was the echo of Daniel's scream. She had saved him. She knew she had. So why was everyone acting like she was the villain of the story? Her shift wasn't officially over. No one confirmed if she was actually fired, and she needed the money, so she kept working. Life demanded clean floors even when hearts were broken. She scrubbed mud from the foyer tiles when Alexander appeared upstairs. His jacket hung loosely, eyes bloodshot and hollow. Their gazes met. Nina rose slowly. "Sir, I don't want to hear it," he rasped. "Don't speak to me. Don't go near my children." Nina swallowed. "I didn't," he pointed, hand shaking. "You think I care what you believe. You think his scream meant you saved him. He was in pain because of you." Veronica appeared behind him, stroking his arm. "She should go, Alex. Too much for the kids, for all of us." Alexander nodded, turning away. Nina stood frozen, heart pounding, every bone begging her to fight back, to shout the truth. Nothing came. The words suffocated under fear, shame, and the fact no one wanted to hear them. By noon, reporters clustered at the gate, cameras poking through wrought iron, snapping photos of a story they didn't understand. Did the maid do it? Why would a religious woman hurt a child? Talk radio buzzed theories, each one painting Nina darker. Inside, Nina cleaned, stayed invisible, listened. Staff whispered in the kitchen. Veronica cried loudly on phone interviews. Alexander's pacing echoed through the night. By evening, as the sky bruised violet, Nina slipped back into the garden. The earth where Daniel had been buried remained dark and loose. The wind rustled hedges, shaking loose, crushed petals. She knelt where she'd pulled him out, pressing her palms into the soil. "Why you, baby?" she whispered. "Why'd they choose you?" Her fingers hit something hard this time. Not a root, metal. She dug carefully, revealing a small silver hairpin, elegant, engraved. She wiped away dirt, revealing 2 letters, E.C. Her breath hitched. Veronica's last name was Monroe, or so she claimed. But Nina remembered tossing an envelope months ago, the return label reading Elena Cortez. It had meant nothing then. Now it pulsed like a secret. She glanced up at the mansion. A light glowed in the guest room. Veronica's room. A shadow shifted behind the curtain, watching. Nina stepped back, tucking the hairpin into her apron. "You're not who you say you are," she whispered, "and I'm going to find out who you really are." Later, alone in the laundry room, she dug out her old flip phone and dialed Detective Morales. Voicemail. "Detective, it's Nina Harris," she whispered. "I know y'all think I'm crazy, but that boy didn't bury himself. And the woman upstairs isn't who she says she is. I found something. Please call me." She hung up, fingers trembling. Footsteps drifted down the hall. A soft, silky voice just loud enough. "Some people don't know when to quit," Veronica said casually, walking past. Nina pressed her back against the wall, heart hammering. She wasn't safe, but neither was the truth, and she wouldn't let it die in the dirt like Daniel almost had. Clutching the hairpin, she whispered, "Lord, if I'm your hands in this, show me where else I need to dig." Morning came with suffocating quiet. The Pierce mansion, wrapped in expensive silence, pretended nothing had happened. The kids stayed upstairs, staff whispered. No one mentioned the garden, the blood, or the woman who'd saved a child and been accused of burying him. Nina entered the dining room before breakfast, hands raw from scrubbing, uniform neat despite bruises. Her swollen cheek throbbed, but she held her chin high. If the house wanted to pretend she didn't exist, she could haunt it in plain sight. Veronica sat at the table's head like royalty. Silk robe, pearl earrings, legs crossed. She sipped tea, polished perfection. "There she is," Veronica cooed. "You're still here. Brave." Nina ignored her, pouring orange juice at the sideboard, knuckles whitening around the pitcher. "I suppose I should thank you," Veronica continued lightly. "You did pull Daniel from the soil, even if you put him there first." Nina turned slowly. "I didn't bury that boy," she said, voice steady. "And you know that." Veronica tilted her head. "Do I?" Their eyes locked. For a heartbeat, Veronica's smile slipped, the mask thinning. Footsteps approached. Alexander entered in a gray suit, looking like he hadn't closed his eyes all night. "Morning, Miss Lily," Nina said softly. Lily glanced at her, then away. Alexander said nothing, sitting across from Veronica. Nina set the pitcher down and turned to leave. Actually, Veronica said louder. Stay a moment, Nina. Alexander and I were discussing something. Nina paused. Yes, ma'am. Alexander looked uncertain. Veronica folded her hands. Given the recent incident, we think it's best you take time away. A few weeks. Rest, reflection. You mean leave? Nina said flatly. Veronica smiled. Voluntarily, of course. No one wants trouble. I'm not leaving those kids alone with you, Nina replied. Alexander's head snapped up. What did you say? They need someone watching out for them, Nina said quietly. And I always have. You're overstepping, Veronica snapped. Nina shook her head. No, I'm protecting. Silence dropped heavy. Lily stared at her bowl. Alexander shoved his chair back. That's enough, he said. You are staff, not family, not their mother. Nina nodded. Yes, sir. And sometimes staff are the only ones who see what's really happening. Veronica stood, chair scraping softly. Pack your things, Nina. I'll pack when Daniel wakes up and tells you what happened, Nina said. Until then, I'm staying. She walked out, leaving them in a frostbitten silence. That afternoon, in the tiny servants' room at the back of the house, a cracked mirror reflected her tired eyes, bruised skin, and stubborn. Fire! Her flip phone buzzed. She lunged for it. Detective Morales. Detective, she said breathlessly. I got your message, he replied, cautious but not unkind. What exactly did you find? A silver hairpin, engraved EC, she answered. Veronica's not her real name. I think she's hiding a past. A bad one. Morales paused. EC, you think that stands for Elena Cortez? That name ring any bells for you? Nina asked. Silence, then. I'll look into it. And Nina, be careful. She hung up, hands shaking. That evening she returned to the garden. The roses, trampled yesterday, were stubbornly lifting their heads again. Life refused to stay crushed. She knelt by the spot where she'd found Daniel. The dirt had crusted slightly, but she could still feel grief soaked in it. This house is drowning in lies, she whispered, pressing her palm to the ground. Help me see what's real. A small voice broke the stillness. Miss Nina? She turned. Lily stood barefoot on the grass, Teddy tucked under her arm. Yes, baby, Nina asked. I heard Veronica on the phone, Lily said. She said you'd be gone soon, said you were dangerous. Nina stood, moving closer. Did she say anything else? Lily nodded. She said he was supposed to stay quiet. When? Nina asked, kneeling. Last night. You did good telling me, Lily, Nina said softly. But you gotta be careful now, okay? Lily nodded. A light flicked on in Veronica's room. She's watching us again, Lily whispered. Nina squeezed her hand. Let her watch, Nina murmured, because I'm watching back. They walked toward the back steps, their shadows long across the lawn, the air thick with summer humidity and secret fear. Inside, the house felt haunted by secrets, not spirits. At the doorway, Lily hesitated. I'm scared, she whispered. What scares you, baby? Nina asked. Lily glanced toward the garden. Veronica said, Mommy watches everything. Mommy gets mad when people tell lies. Nina brushed a curl from Lily's forehead. Your mama loved you, Nina said. That kind of love doesn't turn into anger from heaven. Someone told you that to keep you scared. Lily bit her lip. Veronica said Mommy's ghost talks to her. A chill slid down Nina's spine. Sometimes grown-ups lie, Nina said quietly, especially when they've got something to hide. Are you going away? Lily whispered. No, Nina answered, not until the truth comes out. Lily nodded and padded upstairs, Teddy dragging, leaving Nina watching the staircase. Nina had barely stepped down the hallway when Veronica's voice floated from the living room. "Lily, sweetheart, was that you?" Nina stiffened. Veronica's heels clicked, and she appeared in the doorway, wrapped in silver satin, eyes landing on Nina. "Oh," Veronica said, "it's you." "Yes, ma'am," Nina replied. "Just making sure Lily got inside." Veronica smiled, slow and cold. "Your concern is unnecessary now. My family's been through enough." Nina met her gaze. "Funny, trouble started when you arrived." The smile wavered. Then Veronica stepped closer, perfume cool and expensive. "You're bold for someone hanging by a thread," she whispered. "I told Alexander this house is safer without you. He agrees." "That what you said?" Nina asked. "Or what you made him believe?" Veronica leaned in, voice like glass. "If you knew what was good for you, you'd disappear before you lose everything." Nina didn't flinch. "I've already lost enough," she murmured, "not losing my soul on top of it." Veronica's eyes hardened. "Watch yourself." She drifted away, robe trailing like a ghost. Nina exhaled shakily, fingers brushing the hairpin in her pocket. Easy. Nothing in this house was accidental. She checked the foyer clock. If she wanted proof, she had to move now. She slipped toward the west wing, where the staff offices were tucked away. The corridor was dim, lit by warm sconces. Every step echoed, the house breathing around her, old wood creaking like warnings. She passed Alexander's study. The door was cracked, voices drifting out. Alexander and Veronica. Nina leaned near the frame, careful. "I don't know what to believe," Alexander said, exhausted. "Daniel barely talks. Lily clings to that maid like she's manipulating them," Veronica finished smoothly. "People like Nina blur boundaries. She's fragile, emotional." The officers heard her, claimed she heard a cry underground. "That's delusional." Alexander sighed. "But she's worked here for years. She never—" "People snap," Veronica murmured. "Stress, loneliness, obsession. Maybe she wanted attention, to be the hero." Nina's jaw tightened. "I'm done tonight," Alexander whispered. "My head's spinning." Chairs scraped, footsteps approached. She slipped back, blending into shadows as the door opened. Veronica emerged first, face porcelain smooth. Alexander trudged after her, shoulders heavy. Neither noticed Nina. She ducked into the study. The room smelled like cigars and old leather. On the desk sat a photo of Alexander's late wife, smiling warmly. Dark curls, kind eyes, Lily's eyes, Daniel's smile. Nina brushed the frame gently. "They need you, ma'am," she whispered. "Your babies need you!" A muffled thump upstairs snapped her head. Up, not adult steps, a child. But from the east wing. Kids weren't allowed there alone. Nina followed the sound, moving quickly, silently. The house groaned around her, every creak a threat. At the end of the east hallway, she saw a small shadow. "Daniel," she whispered. He stood barefoot, gripping the railing, face pale, eyes heavy with fear and sleep. "Hey, buddy," Nina said softly. He stared at her, then whispered, voice barely there. She said, "I gotta be quiet or she'll put me back." Nina's stomach lurched. "Who said that, baby?" she asked, stepping slowly closer. "Who?" Before he could answer, another voice sliced through the air. "Daniel." Veronica's sharp tone cracked like a whip. The boy flinched, shoulders tightening. Veronica peered at the hall's far end, concern painted on her face. Sweetheart, you shouldn't be out of bed. Come to Mommy. Daniel stepped toward Nina instead. Veronica's eyes sharpened. Nina moved between them. He's scared, she said. He needs rest, Veronica snapped. She grabbed his wrist too hard. Daniel whimpered. Don't touch him like that, Nina blurted. Veronica's gaze turned icy. You're finished here. She dragged Daniel away, disappearing into the shadows. She'd put me back, lingered in the air like a curse. Nina pressed a hand to her chest, steadying herself. Lord, she whispered, this house is choking on lies. She turned toward the stairs, and I'm going to make it spit out the truth. Back in her cramped room, Nina sat on her cot and pulled out the silver hairpin again. E.C. Elena Cortez. The initials gleamed under the weak light. Her hands trembled as she turned it over, mind racing. People like Veronica didn't leave clues unless they were sure no one could use them. Nina pulled out a beat-up spiral notebook from under her mattress. Pages filled with cramped handwriting, dates, odd little incidents from years in this house. At first, it had been silly stuff. Open drawers, moved toys, whispers at night. Now, those notes felt like a lifeline. She wrote Elena Cortez and circled it. Underneath, silver hairpin E.C. found near burial site. Daniel. She'd put me back. Laughter drifted faintly from the main house. Veronica's smooth-practiced giggle. Parties, calls, performance. As if she hadn't dragged a terrified boy down the hall like a prop. Nina stood. Answers had to be behind Veronica's door. Around 10 p.m., Nina crept through the back corridor leading to the guest wing. Most staff were in bed. Alexander was likely trapped in emails. Veronica's suite would be nearly unguarded. Nina paused outside, listening. The hum of a hairdryer buzzed inside. Good. She turned the knob and slipped in. Veronica's room looked like a luxury catalog, ivory and gold, glass and silk. Perfume bottles lined the dresser. Nina went straight to the nightstand. A leather planner sat half open. Charity galas, menu tastings, media meetings. Nothing useful. She moved to the walk-in closet. Shoes lined the walls, sorted by season and price. A small storage trunk sat at the back, locked. She crouched, feeling underneath. Nothing. On the top shelf, one thing stood out. A red file folder among all the pale colors. She climbed the step stool and grabbed it, heart pounding as she flipped it open. Inside were passport photos of Veronica, but labeled differently. One said, Elena Cortez, Buenos Aires. Another, Maria Estes, Sydney. Another, Lauren Chase, London. Different names, same face. Nina's hand shook as she turned the pages. Marriage certificates, visas, name change documents, a death certificate. A little girl, 8, drowned in a boating accident off Barcelona. Mother's name, Elena Cortez. Nina nearly dropped the folder, shoving everything back as the bathroom door creaked. Going somewhere? Veronica's voice was no longer syrupy. It was steel. Nina turned slowly. I knocked. Nobody answered. Wanted to see if Daniel was in here with you. Veronica stepped out, damp hair, silk clinging, expression unreadable. We need boundaries, Veronica said. Nina held her ground. Boundaries don't matter when someone's crossing lines that put kids in the ground. Veronica smirked. Vivid imagination. I've got proof, Nina shot back. Veronica's eyes glittered. What will you do? Run to the cops? They already think you're fragile, Veronica continued. They let you walk out without apology because they believe me more. Nina's throat burned. Because they don't care, she said. No, Veronica corrected. because they think I care more." She stepped closer. "You're alone. A maid, a black woman with no lawyer, no family here, no power. I'm engaged to one of the state's most powerful men. Who wins?" Nina whispered. "You buried that boy." Veronica's smile never faltered. "And yet he's upstairs breathing. You're the one falling apart. Who sounds dangerous?" Nina brushed past her. If she stayed, she'd either cry or hit something. Back in her room, she wrote one line in her notebook. "She's killed before. She'll do it again." Underneath, she boxed the names: Elena Cortez, Maria Estes, Lauren Chase. Then, in bold letters, "Patterns don't lie. People do." She wouldn't let this vanish in shadows. Morning light seeped through cracked blinds, hazy and accusing. Nina hadn't slept. The folder still haunted her. False identities, a dead child, grief trailing Elena like perfume. Now she played fiancée and stepmother to kids who might end up buried. Nina stepped into the hallway as staff began their routines. Most avoided eye contact. The few who looked at her gave quick, strained nods, like she was the kind of person you prayed for from a distance. She climbed to the nursery. No smell of pancakes or syrup drifted from the kitchen, just cool air and silence. She knocked softly, then eased the door open. The room smelled like lavender and dust. Daniel lay curled on the bed, clutching his dinosaur plush like a shield. He'd slept too much since the garden, or maybe he was pretending. Either way, he looked older than 8, like someone who'd seen too much. Lily sat on the window seat, knees tucked up. "Hey there," Nina said gently. Lily looked up, then down again. Nina sat beside her. "How's your brother?" Lily shrugged. "He doesn't talk much, but he looks at me like he thinks I'll disappear." Nina brushed hair from Lily's face. "You're not going anywhere. Neither am I." Lily's voice dropped. "Did you really dig him up?" Nina nodded. "Yes, baby." "Was he?" "Barely alive," Nina whispered. "But yes." Lily stared out the window. "Veronica said you buried him to be a hero." Nina's chest tightened. "And what do you think?" Lily turned. "I think you saved him." "Mom would have too." Nina closed her eyes. The truth from a child felt heavier than 100 adult accusations. "Go wash up, sweetheart," Nina said. "I'll check on him." Lily slipped out. Nina approached Daniel's bed. His eyes were half open now, watching her. "Morning, buddy," she whispered. He blinked but stayed silent. She pulled the blanket up, straightened the pillows, and noticed something under the frame, a corner of blue plastic. She reached under and tugged out a small toy truck. It was Daniel's favorite, the one that vanished 3 days before he was buried. Dirt clung to it, dark, rich soil like the gardens. Not ordinary dust. Someone had taken it, used it, then tucked it back under his bed. Nina tucked the truck into her apron, heart pounding. Downstairs, Alexander's voice echoed from the kitchen. "No more reporters, Veronica. I mean it." Her reply was low and coaxing. "People need reassurance that your family's safe. Optics matter." "I don't care about optics," he snapped. "My son almost died. I don't know who to trust." Nina slipped halfway down the stairs, listening. "Then let me protect this family," Veronica murmured. "Let me handle it." "No," Alexander said weakly, but his voice lacked conviction. Nina backed away, heading for the laundry room and her phone. "Detective Morales," he answered after 2 rings. "It's Nina," she whispered. "I found Daniel's toy truck, the missing one, under his bed, covered in that same garden dirt." Silence stretched. "So, someone took it, used it, then put it back," Morales said slowly. "Yes, and I think I know who. Nina, listen, he said. We ran Elena Cortez. You were right. There are sealed cases abroad. Nothing official yet, but it's bad. She's dangerous, Nina replied, and she's living in this house. I believe you now, he said quietly, but I still need something solid, something that'll hold up in court. Nina looked at the toy clenched in her hand. I'm getting closer. A shadow slid past the laundry room. Window. Slow, deliberate steps in the hall. Someone listening. Nina held her breath until the sounds faded, then exhaled. They were watching her, but this time she was watching back. The kitchen felt wrong that afternoon, like the air knew something she didn't. No clatter of pans, no gossip, not even Veronica's heels, just a heavy quiet. Nina stood at the sink, gently hand-washing Daniel's dinosaur toy. Soil still stained its seams. She couldn't toss it in the machine. Some things deserved careful hands. Nina! She turned. Alexander stood in the doorway, sleeves rolled, collar open, looking older than his years. Sir, she said cautiously. He stepped closer, eyes dodging hers. I need you to give Daniel some medicine before his nap. She straightened. What kind? He pulled a small bottle from his pocket. The label was half peeled, name unfamiliar. She turned it over. Dosify, she read. This isn't from Dr. Williams. No, Alexander admitted. A specialist, Veronica's contact. She says it'll help him rest. He's been restless. Nina held the bottle like it might bite. With respect, sir, he's restless because he's traumatized, not sick, she said. Kids don't need to be sedated for hurting. They need to feel safe. Alexander's jaw clenched. You're questioning my decisions now? No, sir, Nina answered. I'm questioning hers. His gaze snapped to hers. She set the bottle on the counter between them. Daniel doesn't need this. He needs someone who isn't pretending he's crazy. She says you're overstepping again, he said coldly. Says you're obsessed. How many names has she given you? Nina asked softly. How much of her past do you really know? He froze. She's told me everything, he insisted. Nina nodded slowly. Then you're blessed. Most liars don't confess their sins up front. He didn't answer, just turned and walked away, silence trailing behind him like smoke. Nina picked up the bottle, turning it in her fingers, then slipped it into her pocket. Later, she crept into the guest bathroom where Veronica kept her things. Marble counters gleamed. The mirror sparkled. Nina opened the drawer beneath the sink and found a small cosmetic bag tucked behind tissues. Inside were several pre-filled syringes, tightly packed, unlabeled. Her breath stuttered. She reached for one. The door creaked open. Veronica's reflection appeared in the mirror, pale and calm. I wouldn't touch those if I were you, she said pleasantly. Nina straightened. You're drugging that boy. Veronica stepped inside, perfume flooding the small space. I'm helping him. He's anxious, withdrawn. Children need balance. Children need love, Nina snapped. And the truth. They need structure, Veronica replied. Not your chaos. What's in those syringes? Nina asked. Veronica leaned close, their faces inches apart. Why don't you jab one into yourself and find out? She purred. Nina's voice went flat. You keep playing nurse, someone's going to ask to see your license. Veronica shrugged. As if your word matters. Who believes you now? Nina brushed past, but not empty-handed. She'd slipped a folded paper from the cosmetic bag. A note signed Dr. Emery Lang. Another name, another thread. That night, Nina called Morales. Found a note, she said. New name, Emery Lang. Doctor, probably sketchy. Might be supplying her meds off the books. I'll check him, Morales replied. Nina, stay careful. She slid the note under her pillow. An hour later, a soft knock rattled her door. Miss Nina? Lily's voice? Nina opened it. Lily stood there in pajamas, barefoot, hugging her bear. She's giving Daniel shots, Lily whispered. He hates them. Nina knelt. You seen her do it? Lily nodded. She says it's a game, then gives him a treat. Nina hugged her close. Thank you for telling me. That's brave, baby. Lily's voice trembled. Is she gonna hurt us? Nina pulled back, looking Lily in the eye. Not if I'm still breathing, she said. Lily nodded. I believe you. Nina watched her walk back down the dim hallway, Teddy dragging, small feet silent on the floorboards. Closing her door, Nina leaned against it, feeling the storm. Gathering. Veronica wasn't just twisting the story. She was controlling the kids, their sleep, their memories. Nina set the note beside the toy truck, next to her open notebook. One name at a time, one clue at a time. The mask was slipping. Nina would make sure the world saw what was underneath. The next morning, sunlight poured into the Pierce mansion like a spotlight on everything still hidden. Nina moved through the staff hallway, steps steady, gaze sharp. She slipped into the storage room by the laundry, where forgotten things went to disappear. Boxes of estate paperwork, dusty crates, ignored history. Perfect! She dragged down a box labeled Estate Records 2006-2012. Inside, renovation invoices, payroll, background checks. She flipped quickly until she found one, an application for Celeste Monroe. The photo was Veronica. No social security number. Questionable references. At the crate's bottom, a velvet pouch spilled open, revealing another silver hairpin. Identical shape. Same engraved EC. Not the one from the garden, but its twin. Proof of a pattern. Proof she'd been here longer, deeper than anyone realized. Veronica hadn't clung to the Pierce family by chance. Nina saw that now. They mirrored someone Veronica had lost or broken. Someone she couldn't save or never really tried to. Nina wrapped an arm around Lily. You did so good, sweetheart, she murmured. I swear I'm going to keep you and your brother safe. Lily leaned into her, voice small. Even if she gets mad? Especially when she gets mad, Nina said. After Lily slipped out, Nina stared at everything spread across her blanket. The photo, both hairpins, the shady prescription, the dirt-stained truck. Veronica had been arranging this puzzle for years. But Nina was building one of her own. Sleep barely brushed her that night. The objects felt like explosives, each one a quiet witness to obsession and a near child's burial. She spent the dark hours cataloging patterns, tracing connections no one else wanted to see. By sunrise, the Pierce house stirred again. Coffee percolated. Staff murmured. Veronica hummed down the hallway like a woman in a perfume commercial. She could perform normal perfectly, but Nina heard the hollowness ringing under every note. Once breakfast ended under Nina's watchful eye, she slipped back toward the East Wing hallway, where Daniel had wandered that horrible night. She had a single goal: understand his terrified whisper about being put back. The East Wing was mostly forgotten. Old guest rooms, cramped closets, a narrow, unused library. Most doors stuck or stayed locked, but Daniel had come from here. The air itself felt wrong, like the walls remembered things. Nina moved slowly, fingertips skimming faded floral wallpaper. Halfway down, one door stood slightly open, a breath of cold seeping out. She eased it wider and stepped into a room that smelled of dust and old lullabies. It was an abandoned nursery. Dust veiled everything. A crib sagged in the corner under yellowed lace. A toy chest slumped open, half empty. But the strangest part wasn't what remained. It was the heavy, unnatural silence. She crossed to the far wall. One vent cover looked newer than the others, its screws shiny. Kneeling, she pressed her ear to it. At first, nothing. Then, faintly like breath behind a door, a woman's voice. "Don't cry," it whispered. Not ghostly, just distant, like someone speaking from inside the wall. "Don't cry. You were bad, so now you sleep." Ice crawled up Nina's spine. She reached into the vent, fingers scraping metal. The space was shallow, but something snagged her fingertips. She wiggled it loose and pulled out a crumpled, water-stained photograph. A girl, maybe 6, stared back at her, eyes wide, haunted. Standing behind her, Veronica, wearing that same thin smile. Nina flipped the picture. Smeared ink read, "Elena plus Lila, Rio de Janeiro, 2002. Different country, different child, same pattern. Another little girl, another life, wrapped in Veronica's orbit." Her stomach turned as footsteps rustled behind her. "Miss Nina?" She jumped. Daniel stood in the doorway, pale, fingers twisting his shirt. She softened her voice. "Hey, buddy, you okay?" He nodded, gaze drifting past her toward the vent, lower lip trembling. "That's where she put Lila," he whispered. Nina's heart dropped. "Who's Lila, honey?" He pointed to the photograph in her hand. "Her. I saw her. She cried a lot." Nina swallowed. "Did Veronica hurt her, baby?" His shoulders curled inward. "She said Lila was bad. She said if I told, she'd make me go back in the wall." Nina forced her voice steady. "You're safe now. Nobody's putting you anywhere." He looked up, tears glassing his eyes. "But she's watching." Nina pulled him into a tight hug. "Then we watch her back," she murmured. Later, after settling Daniel with snacks and a cartoon, she called Morales. "She's got history in Brazil, too." Nina whispered into the phone. "Found a picture. Girl named Lila. Daniel says she was hidden in the wall." Morales cursed softly. "I'm leaning on Interpol. If kids link to those aliases, they'll surface." "He's terrified," Nina added. "She uses fear like medicine." "We're close, Nina," Morales said. "We just need one solid tie to harm here in New York, something no one can ignore." She hung up, staring out the hallway window. Outside, Veronica lounged by the pool, laughing into her phone, sunglasses reflecting sunlight like mirrors. She moved like someone who'd buried 100 pasts and expected this one to stay under, too. Nina's jaw tightened. That afternoon, Nina caught Alexander alone in his study. "I need you to see something," she said, handing him the vent photo. He squinted. "Who's this?" "Her name was Lila," Nina replied. "Daniel remembers her. Says Veronica put her in the wall." Alexander's hand trembled. "No, not in this house. She's lied about everything," Nina said. "Her name, her history, why she's here. She didn't come to build a future, sir. She came to rewrite her past." He set the photo down slowly, voice rough. "She told me her little sister died in a fire. She cried when she said it. Swore that's why she never wanted kids." Nina sat opposite him. "It's not a lie if she blames someone else for it," Nina said gently. "People like her twist the story until even they believe it. But your kids, she sees ghosts when she looks at them." He stared at his hands. "What do you want from me?" "Look at your children," Nina answered softly. Ask if she sees Daniel and Lily, or replacements. A long silence. Then he whispered, "Watch her. If she slips even once, I'll back you." Nina nodded. "Thank you." That night, after the house quieted, she sat at her tiny desk, photo beside her. On the back, beneath Veronica's scrawled note, she added her own line. "The walls remember. Children remember. Truth waits." Dawn broke heavy with humidity, the kind that clung to your skin. From her window, Nina watched Veronica in the garden, swanning through hydrangeas in a pale dress like she was filming an Ada, hands delicately snipping away dead blooms. Nina knew better now. The garden wasn't just decorative. It was layered with secrets. Daniel's shallow grave had been hidden beneath the roses. She couldn't shake the thought, what else might be sleeping under all those pretty petals? But this time, digging couldn't just be with her hands. It had to be with facts and names. After breakfast, she found Alexander again in the study, face more lined, tie half loosened. She dropped a manila folder onto his desk. "What's this?" he asked. "Missing child reports from everywhere. Veronica's aliases show up," Nina said. "Interpol seals, Morales pulled favors." Inside were photographs, timelines, certificates, passports, all pointing to wealthy families, vanished children, and one woman who kept changing names. Every file ended quietly, tucked away, cases closed without noise. "She's not just hiding who she is," Nina murmured. "She's hiding what she's done." Alexander swallowed hard. "Tonight," he said, "keep the kids close. Veronica and I will celebrate on the terrace. I'll push her," he continued, "if she slips. Even once, I want you ready." Nina nodded. "I'll be listening." That evening, the terrace looked like a magazine, spread. String lights glowed. Jazz hummed. Veronica floated out in an off-shoulder gown, all practiced charm. Nina watched from just inside the glass doors, hidden in the shadow of a curtain. Lily and Daniel were upstairs, bathed, tucked in, a small walkie-talkie on their nightstand in case they needed her. Outside, Veronica lifted her wine. "To us," she purred, "to second chances." Alexander didn't toast back. He leaned forward, eyes steady. "What was her name?" Veronica's smile faltered. "Who?" "The little girl in Brazil," he said. "The one in that picture." For the briefest heartbeat, her mask slipped. Then it smoothed. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You told Nina you never had children," he said. "Never wanted them." "I haven't," Veronica replied, placing her glass down. Carefully. He held up the photo. Her eyes darkened. "She wasn't mine," Veronica said quietly. "She was a foster placement. The system failed her." "Did you bury her too?" Alexander asked. Veronica rose from her chair, anger flashing. "You're exhausted," she said tightly. This is beneath you." "Burying my son alive was beneath you," he snapped, standing. Inside, Nina's fingers tightened around the radio. Veronica's mask cracked further. "You should have let him go," she hissed. "He wouldn't stop crying. He stared at me like she did. Those eyes that never let go." Horror rippled across Alexander's face. Nina moved, shoving the sliding door open just as Veronica grabbed the wine bottle, lifting it not to pour, but to strike. Nina caught her wrist mid-swing. Veronica's gaze snapped to her. "You don't belong here," she snarled. "Neither do you." Nina shot back. They grappled, bottle shattering against stone. Alexander yanked Veronica away as Nina shielded herself. Veronica still wasn't done. "You think this ends with me?" she spat. "You think I'm the only one who ever lost something and wanted it back?" In the distance, sirens whined, faint but growing. Morales was listening. Nina stepped forward, voice firm. Maybe not, but you're the one who made innocent kids pay for it. When officers arrived, Veronica didn't resist. She simply smiled, like a performer leaving stage, still expecting someone to clap. As they led her away, Alexander looked shattered. "I didn't see it," he whispered. "I didn't want to." Nina touched his arm gently. "She did everything she could to keep you blind." That night, officers dug deeper in the garden. Near the hydrangeas, they unearthed a small box of keepsakes, child bracelets, tiny toys, a lone pacifier wrapped in lace, evidence, names, stories that had never been told but finally would be. Inside, Nina climbed to the nursery. Daniel was awake, eyes wide. "Is she gone?" he breathed. Nina knelt beside him. "She is, sweetheart. You're safe." He reached out and she squeezed his hand. Lily stirred. "Nina? Yeah, baby? You're staying, right?" Tears pricked her eyes. "Nobody's moving me now." Downstairs, Alexander stood alone on the terrace, staring into the dark beyond the lights. Upstairs, for the first time in months, two kids drifted toward real sleep. Nina exhaled. The garden, once a hiding place for terror, could finally become what it was meant to be again, soil for things that deserved to live. A week slipped by, then another. Slowly, the Pierce estate began to breathe properly. No more echoed threats or designer-clad danger. The quiet that remained was softer, not empty. It felt like something mending itself, layer by layer. No one dared say the word healed, but everyone felt a difference. Mornings, Nina walked the garden with Daniel and Lily. The roses had recovered, unfurling petals like forgiveness. Daniel laughed more. Chasing butterflies, burying toy cars not out of terror, but pretend excavations he'd eagerly dig back up. Lily sat under the sycamore reading aloud, her voice floating through open windows. They were recovering, but Nina knew healing wasn't erasing. Trust never returned in the same shape after it shattered. Even so, they were trying. Evenings, Alexander often sat on the front steps with a drink, thoughts hidden behind tired eyes. He rarely spoke to Nina about that night, but he watched her with the kids, saw how they clung to her like roots to good soil. One Thursday, he finally broke the quiet. "You ever think about leaving, Nina?" he asked as she handed him fresh coffee. She tilted her head. "Every day," she admitted. His brows lifted. "Not 'cause I want to," she added, settling beside him. "Just sometimes I wonder if staying makes me a target or a threat." "You saved my son's life," Alexander said softly. "You could ask for anything," Nina chuckled. "All I want is the truth to stay told." He sipped his coffee. "The press is quiet. We sealed what we could. Morales is pushing charges overseas. You think keeping this quiet is smart?" "What do you think?" he asked. Nina stared at the hydrangeas swaying in the breeze. "The more we bury, the more it comes back twisted," she said. He nodded, thoughtful silence settling, not defensive but reflective. That night, as she tucked the kids in, Lily frowned. "Is Veronica in jail?" Nina nodded. "Yeah, baby. Is she coming back?" Nina hesitated. "I don't think so." Lily stared at her blanket. "She said she loved us." "Maybe she did," Nina said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "But some folks loved the story they made up more than the people in it. She loved a version of you that wasn't really you." Lily's eyes shimmered. "But she looked at me like she knew me." Nina brushed her hair. "'Cause you reminded her of someone she lost. Doesn't make what she did right. Just explains how she broke wrong." "I'm glad you're here," Lily whispered. "Me too, sugar," Nina murmured, kissing her forehead. In the hallway, Daniel waited, clutching his stuffed bear. Nina? Yeah, buddy. He stared up, face serious. I remember the dirt. She crouched. You don't gotta talk about it unless you want. He nodded, then whispered, It was cold, but I heard you crying. That's how I knew I wasn't dead. Dead people don't have somebody crying for them. Nina blinked hard. I was crying 'cause I thought I was too late. But you weren't, he said simply. You're never late. She pulled him into a shaking hug. You're safe now. No more dark holes. Downstairs, Alexander stared at a sealed envelope bearing Veronica's prison return address. He considered burning it, considered tearing it apart. Instead, he locked it in a drawer. Some stories didn't need reading. They'd already been survived. By month's end, the house felt new. Light lingered longer. Laughter bounced off walls that used to echo with whispers. Nina planted vegetables with Lily in the back garden. Lily insisted the tomatoes needed names. Daniel painted signs for each row. Tommy Tomato, Bella Bean, Captain Carrot. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were becoming. One morning, watching Daniel carefully water a fragile sprout, Nina felt something shift inside, something like gratitude instead of dread. Not because everything had turned out tidy, but because when it went ugly, she hadn't turned away. She had dug, listened, fought. In a garden once used to hide pain, life was pushing through again. Spring slid into early summer, quiet and sacred. The Pierce estate blossomed in more than roses. Staff moved lighter. The children laughed louder. Even the wind through the trees sounded relieved, like it had been bracing for too long. For the first time in years, Nina allowed herself to breathe without flinching. But she knew peace was always temporary, especially when the past still had unsaid things wedged in the walls. One morning, while folding laundry, Clara walked in. She carried a padded envelope, expression uneasy. "This came for you," Clara said. "From the courthouse." Nina wiped her hands, taking it. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the postmark tightened her chest. Orange County Correctional Facility. Veronica's prison. Inside lay a letter. Not from Morales or any official office. From Veronica herself. Nina sat at the small window table, opened it and read, her face steady even as the words tried to dig under her skin. "Dear Nina," it began. "They say when a woman breaks, she shatters quietly. I never did quiet. I screamed inside for years before I did anything wrong. You think I'm a monster. Maybe I am. But monsters are made, not born. You don't know what it is to hold a dying child and know you can't save her. I didn't bury Daniel because I hated him. I buried him because he had Lily's eyes when she begged me. You stole the ending I wanted. Maybe you gave them the ending they deserved. Do whatever you want with this letter. I won't write again." Nina folded it once, sliding it back into the envelope. No tears, no raised voice. She opened a drawer, pulling out a tiny wooden music box she'd unearthed weeks earlier under a rosebush near Daniel's burial spot. Weathered, hinges rusted, but when wound, it played a slow, wavering lullaby. She set the music box beside the envelope and closed the drawer. That evening, Alexander found her on the back steps at sunset, flour dusting her apron. "She wrote you," he said. "I guessed." Nina nodded. "She wrote you too?" He lifted his brows. "Haven't opened it." "You don't have to," Nina said. "They're not apologies, just echoes trying to stay loud." He watched Lily and Daniel chase fireflies across the lawn. "She tried to rewrite her pain using my kids," he admitted. "I let her. I believed her grief matched mine. Nina pressed a hand to her chest. Hurt doesn't give us permission to break people who didn't do the hurting, she said. He nodded slowly. They sat in companionable silence, the kind that follows understanding instead of denial, until the sky turned fully dark. I've been thinking, Alexander said at last, about their future, about yours. Nina turned. You've done more for them than I did when I couldn't see straight. I want to make it official. Her breath caught. Official how? She asked. He pulled a folded document from his jacket. I spoke to my attorneys. If anything happens to me, I want you named their legal guardian. You don't have to answer yet. Nina stared at the paper, voice barely above a whisper. Never thought anybody would trust me with their babies on purpose. She swallowed. But I love them like they're mine. For once, his smile wasn't shadowed. That's why, he said quietly, because in all the ways that matter, they already are. That night, while the kids slept, Nina opened the music box on their nightstand. The lullaby floated through the dark. She sat between their beds, one hand near Daniel's shoulder, the other gently combing Lily's curls. Memories surfaced not of fear, but of pancakes, scribbled drawings, muddy sneakers, giggles. She whispered a prayer, not for revenge, but for peace. Peace for kids who never had it, for voices buried in silence, for families trying to grow something new over old wounds. Summer air hugged the house like an unfinished sentence. At night, the wooden beams still creaked. 2 months had passed since Veronica's arrest. Life had rhythm again, but Nina kept her guard up. Some scars didn't show and some stories weren't done. One evening, she stepped into Alexander's bathroom to put away folded towels. Her reflection stared back from the large brass-framed mirror. Older, steadier. Scars from rose thorns faint on her arms, calluses on her hands. But her eyes no longer begged to be believed. They demanded to be taken seriously. As she turned to leave, something caught her eye behind the cabinet's side panel. A folded scrap of paper, barely visible. She knelt, tugging it free. Yellowed, watermarked, scrawled in hurried, familiar handwriting. E.C. Elena Cortez. If anything happens to me, please protect Lila. She isn't safe. Nina exhaled sharply. A message from a younger Veronica, before America, before the Pierces. Was it warning, confession, or manipulation? The name Lila throbbed like an old bruise. She hurried downstairs, pulling the Interpol folder from the desk. Flipping through, she searched for any Lila Cortez, any Lila Monroe. Nothing. One Brazilian case snagged her attention. A foster child, first name Lila, reported missing in Sao Paulo, 2008. The file was thin. Placed with older half-sister, guardian left country, child presumed relocated, case closed. Guardian listed, Elena Cortez. Nina circled it. She didn't know what hurt more, that Lila vanished or that the world moved on. Next morning, she called Morales again. Found a note, she said. She tried to warn someone about Lila once before she broke completely. Morales sighed. Patterns point backward. Maybe she started as the wounded one. Or convinced herself she was, Nina said. Some folks channel pain into protection. Others twist it into punishment. She watched through the window as Lily and Daniel poured lemonade for the mailman, laughing at their crooked cardboard sign. "Any chance Lila's still alive?" she asked. "No death record," Morales replied. "But that doesn't mean she isn't gone, or hiding." Later, Nina handed Alexander the old note. He read it, jaw clenched. She was afraid, he murmured. Before she ever arrived here, she'd already lost someone, Nina said. Then she tried to patch that hole with your kids. He stared out the window. You think Lila was her daughter? Maybe, Nina answered. Or maybe she was trying to fix her own childhood through that girl. I think she loved Lila in some warped way. I think Lila was the first ghost. Alexander sank into his chair, eyes distant. You think she regrets any of it? Nina thought a long moment. I think she regrets getting caught, she said finally. But the lie, that was her safest room. She never left it. That night, steam fogged the bathroom. Mirror. After bathing the kids, Nina wiped it clean. For a heartbeat, she swore she saw another face behind her, small, solemn, watching. She spun, empty hallway, her skin still prickled. Lila, she whispered into the quiet, wherever you are, I won't let your story end with her. The mirror only reflected her, but the house felt like it was holding its breath, waiting. It started as a squeak, sharper than old wood settling. Nina heard it late one evening while walking near the East Wing nursery. A small, deliberate sound underneath her feet. She stopped, pressing her palm to the floorboards. Another faint shift answered. She returned next morning once Alexander took the kids to lunch. Telling Clara she needed to check for termites, Nina rolled back the hallway rug, exposing uneven boards. One plank carried a thin split down the center. She eased a screwdriver along its edge, prying until the wood groaned. Beneath lay a narrow crawl space, packed with dust and cobwebs. Nina reached in and found a metal lunchbox, dented, rusting at the hinges. Inside, wrapped in a faded baby blanket, were tiny relics. A child's hairbrush with Lila scratched in the handle, toddler ballet slippers, a photo of young Veronica holding a curly-haired girl, and a cheap purple bead bracelet. Nina's breath snagged. This wasn't just storage. It was a shrine, a private altar to grief and guilt. She snapped pictures before replacing everything exactly and resetting the board. Only then did she exhale. That night, she texted the photos to Morales. Found proof, she wrote. Not just trauma, obsession. Lila was real. He called shortly after. We dug deeper, he said. There's a Brazilian birth certificate, Lila C., later revoked after a paternity dispute. Officially, she never existed. Nina stared at the sleeping kids, which means she could be anywhere, she murmured. Or nowhere, he replied. But what matters is that child changed Veronica. Ever since, she's been chasing Lila's shadow in every kid. Next morning, Alexander found Nina kneeling in the garden, planting zinnias. You found something, he said quietly. She removed her gloves and handed him the tin box. He examined each item, face tightening with each piece. She lost this child, he whispered, one way or another. Yeah, Nina said, by death, by courts, by her own choices. I don't know, but I think it snapped something inside her. He closed the box gently. I keep wondering how many warnings I missed, he admitted. All of them, Nina answered softly, because none of us were looking until it screamed. But you didn't hear the whispers. I did. He studied her. What do we do with this? We tell the truth, Nina said. When the kids are ready, we teach them what danger can look like, even when it smiles and cooks them breakfast. That evening, Alexander called her into the study. A thick folder lay on his desk. Legal documents, trust papers, custody directives. It's filed, he said. You're their legal guardian if anything happens to me. Nina's throat tightened. You sure? She whispered. I've never been surer, he replied. They've already seen more than most adults, but with you, they're actually learning how to live, not just survive. Outside, thunder rumbled, a storm rolling in. For once, Nina didn't shrink from it. She felt grounded, in the soil, in her choices, in the two kids upstairs who believed she could keep monsters away. The sky cracked with dry thunder, no rain yet. Nina stood on the porch, watching restless clouds pile up. Inside, Lily and Daniel painted creek stones, laughing. Alexander argued quietly with his lawyer about security upgrades. The estate had stronger gates now, but Nina knew storms didn't respect fences. Later that afternoon, a dark blue sedan rolled up the crushed stone drive. Government plates glinting. Nina's shoulders tensed the way they always did around official badges and polite authority. A man climbed out, suit sharp, expression serious. "Nina Harris," he called. "That's me," she replied, stepping forward. "Special Agent Aaron Keene, FBI Behavioral Analysis," he said, showing his badge. "Mind if we talk?" She gestured toward the porch. "Chairs." He stayed standing. "We've reopened several cold cases," Keene began. "Children missing from foster homes across multiple states. They share one common thread: a temporary guardian using variations of the name Alina Cortez." Nina's jaw tightened, but her face stayed calm. "Heard she's gone quiet," Nina said. Keene nodded. "Hasn't spoken since her arraignment. Until now, she requested a visitor." Nina's heart dipped. "Let me guess," she said. "Me." "You," he confirmed. "She'll only talk if you're the one listening." Lily's voice floated from inside. "Nina, my rock looks like a dinosaur." Nina smiled toward the door, then turned back. "You want me to walk into a cage with her and dig up ghosts the Bureau couldn't?" "She trusts you, or fears you," Keene said. "Both work. We think she knows where some of those kids ended up. Maybe even Lila." Nina folded her arms. "Fear isn't truth. She wants control, same as always. Maybe he allowed. But if there's even a sliver of a chance she gives up a grave, a name, a lead, we need you." Inside, Daniel laughed. Nina glanced toward the sound, weighing her answer. These children deserved a future without shadows. The others deserved a chance at being found, or at least remembered. Nina looked back at Keene. "One room," she said. "I wear the mic, and I want access to her things." "Deal," he said. That night, Nina packed a small overnight bag and left it by the mudroom door. She didn't tell the kids yet. They were busy drawing comics and sticking them crookedly to the fridge. At bedtime, Daniel crawled into her LAP while Lily braided her own hair. "You going somewhere?" Daniel asked suddenly. Nina hesitated. "Maybe for a day. Gotta help some people understand things they should have seen already." "Is it about her?" Lily asked quietly. Nina nodded. "Don't let her talk too long," Lily warned. "She makes your brain feel fuzzy." Nina smiled sadly. "She won't scramble mine, baby." That night, both kids slept in Nina's bed. Around dawn, rain finally arrived, tapping softly against the windows. Nina stared at the ceiling, listening. "She wants to see me," she thought. "Fine, she'll see everything I'm carrying, too." Morning came gray but determined. She dressed in black slacks, a simple gray blouse, and her grandmother's silver locket, still empty inside, a small circle of quiet. Alexander walked her to the waiting car. "If she tries to twist you," he began. "I won't let her," Nina said. "Don't show her the woman who saved Daniel. Show her the one who buried her lies." She slid into the back seat. As the car rolled away, she didn't look back. The prison rose from the landscape like a concrete scar, all sharp angles and barred windows. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed, bleaching everything of warmth. A guard led Nina down narrow corridors to a small room divided by plexiglass. 2 chairs, 1 phone on each side, and a wall clock ticking too loudly. "She hasn't spoken in nearly 2 months," the guard murmured. "If she pulls anything strange, hit the buzzer." Nina nodded, eyes fixed on the far door. It opened with a mechanical hiss. Veronica stepped in, thinner, colorless without makeup, hair scraped into a tight bun. Prison had stripped away glamour, but not that eerie calm. She sat, lifted the phone. Nina mirrored her. "I knew you'd come," Veronica said. "You never did like leaving things underground." Nina's stare was cool. "You asked for me, so talk." Veronica smiled faintly. "They said you'd come in furious. I said you'd come in shining." "I'm wearing your mistakes," Nina replied, "on their faces, in their dreams." Veronica tilted her head. "They're still dreaming about me. I thought children forgot so quickly." "Not the kind you gave them," Nina said. A silence stretched. "I still hear Lila," Veronica whispered. Nina's spine went rigid. "Is she alive?" Veronica's gaze drifted. She spoke softly of blue dresses and a stuffed turtle missing an eye. How Lila insisted it saw better that way. Tears shined at the corners of Veronica's eyes, but Nina didn't. "Soften." "Where is she?" Nina pressed. No answer. Veronica rested her palm against the glass. "She never asked me for anything, not even love. She just existed." "You're never getting out," Nina said. "So why protect a secret that isn't yours anymore?" Veronica leaned closer. "Because the only thing I own now is that I mattered to someone, even if that someone is gone." "You don't matter to anyone out there," Nina replied quietly. "You're not cherished. You're a warning. Those kids you tried to remake are learning to live without your story controlling them." Veronica's jaw clenched. "If any part of you is still human," Nina continued, "tell me what happened to Lila." Veronica hesitated, then finally spoke. "There's a bus station locker in San Antonio. Keys taped behind the radiator in my old apartment, Maria Lenz. Inside is her artwork, a lock of hair, a hospital bracelet, and a journal. Mine," Veronica said. "All the ways I tried to save her, all the ways I failed." She paused, voice almost tender. "You remind me of her. That's why I hated you." This story, Nina knew, was never just about monsters. It was about choices, about seeing the overlooked, choosing to protect instead of possess, to dig for truth instead of letting darkness win. And in that choice, hope finally had somewhere to grow. Evil often comes dressed in good clothes. If you're over 65, you've lived long enough to know this. Real danger rarely shows up looking like a villain in a movie. It smiles, dresses nicely, and says all the right things at Sunday brunch. In Nina's story, Veronica didn't arrive at the Pierce mansion as a threat. She came wrapped in silk robes, perfect hair, gentle smiles, speaking the language of healing and second chances. Many of you have seen that kind of person before, maybe in a family, a church, or a neighborhood group. They seem polished, educated, good for the family. But behind closed doors, they twist the truth, isolate the vulnerable, and make good people doubt their own eyes. Nina knew something was wrong the moment she dragged Daniel out of that shallow grave in the rose garden. Yet, instead of being thanked, she was slapped, humiliated, and accused. Why? Because Veronica had already woven her web, whispering that Nina was unstable, obsessed, fragile. Older Americans know how easily rumors can poison a reputation in a small town or a big house. The scary part isn't just Veronica's cruelty, it's how quickly others believed her. The lesson for us is clear and sobering. Don't assume someone is safe just because they're charming, wealthy, or good with the kids. And don't dismiss the quiet worker, the caregiver, the maid, just because she doesn't have money or fancy words. Many of you spent your lives reading people, not resumes. Trust that wisdom. Evil often hides behind respectability, and it counts on older folks being too polite to call it out. Protecting children means believing the one voice no one wants to hear. If you've raised children or grandchildren, you know their safety can keep you awake at night. In Nina's world, the people who should have protected Daniel and Lily, police, employer, even neighbors, were quick to doubt, quick to look away. Nina, a working-class black woman with a sick daughter and overdue bills, was the easiest person to blame. Some of you may remember times when your word weighed less because of your job, your accent, your neighborhood, or the color of your skin. That sting doesn't fade with age. Yet when everyone turned on her, Nina did something many older Americans will recognize. She stayed. She kept showing up to work. She held Lily when the girl was scared. She kept digging, literally in the soil and figuratively in the past, because those children needed someone who wouldn't disappear when things got ugly. That's a very grandparent kind of courage. Quiet, stubborn, not flashy, but unbreakable. Children like Daniel don't always have the words to explain what happened. "She said I gotta be quiet or she'll put me back," he whispered. That one sentence carried more truth than any press conference. For those of you who have lived through times when kids were told, "Don't talk about that," this hits close to home. Protecting children means listening to the hard, uncomfortable things they say, and to the adults who risk everything to speak up for them. The lesson here, when a vulnerable person says, "Something's wrong," don't rush to defend the comfortable story. Look again, listen longer. Many of you know that real love isn't soft, it's fierce. Nina's love for those kids shows us that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to walk away, even when you're standing alone. Pain may explain a person, but it never excuses their harm. By the time Veronica is finally in prison, we learn more about her past. About Lila, the little girl who vanished. About the foster records, the shrine hidden under the floorboards, the note begging someone to protect Lila. For older readers, this may stir memories of neighbors, relatives, or even spouses whose deep wounds made them unpredictable, controlling, or cruel. You know better than anyone that a hard childhood can twist a person. You also know it doesn't give them the right to destroy everyone around them. Veronica tried to turn her grief into a license to repeat the same tragedy with new children. Instead of getting help, she tried to rewrite her pain by burying it, in gardens, in walls, in lies. Some of you have watched people do that with alcohol, with anger, or with silence. Hurt people can hurt people, yes. But as Nina shows, hurt people can also choose to protect, to tell the truth, and to stand guard so others don't fall into the same pit. When the FBI comes and asks Nina to visit Veronica in prison, it isn't because Nina is a therapist or a lawyer. It's because she's the one person who saw both sides, the brokenness and the danger. She listens, but she doesn't get pulled into pity that erases responsibility. That's a balance many elders understand well. You can feel compassion for how someone got lost and still insist they answer for what they did. The lesson, our generation and yours has seen war, loss, and hardship. We know pain is real, but we also know that healing means drawing lines. You can pray for a person's soul and still testify against their actions. You can recognize their sadness and still lock the door to keep your grandchildren safe. Pain may explain somebody. It never excuses the harm they choose to do. In the end, Nina, Daniel, Lily, and even Alexander show us what real endurance looks like in later chapters of life. Seeing the truth, protecting the young, and refusing to let someone else's broken story swallow your own. For those of you over 65, your wisdom, earned through long years, is exactly the kind of light this dark world still needs. Friend, after walking with Nina through the roses, the lies, and the fight to protect those two children, I'd love to hear your heart. Have you ever trusted someone who looked perfect, only to discover they were harming the people you loved, or making you doubt your own judgment? If you were in Nina's place, would you have stayed and fought, or packed your bags and run? Share your story in the comments below. And if this spoke to you, please like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and share it so more people can learn from these hard, honest lessons.